Hey, everybody, welcome. It is April 21st. I'm in Pittsburgh. I'm not in the best lighting. I'll see if I can fix that once we get going here. And my name's Stephen Neely. I'm your host for the 96th virtual Dalcroze meetup. We have been gathering colleagues from around the world for more than 5 years now. We meet up every couple of weeks and share best practices. And so we talk about our teaching, we talk about our research, we talk about our interests, we talk about our careers, and all of it sort of surrounding what is the tap into Dalcroze and Jacques Dalcroze and Dalcroze eurythmics and Dalcroze related things, music and movement, etc. And so we are just thrilled to have everybody together today. It looks like we have a slightly smaller group, but it's certainly no trouble. We've got some great presenters and some really actually interesting ideas, and I'm looking forward to talking with everybody. So we normally start with just welcoming each other, introducing each other. With a slightly bigger group, I would throw us into breakout rooms. But for today, with just a group of 6 on the call and 4 faces on the screen, we're just going to say hi. So I'm Stephen. We say our name, where are we located, and who do we teach. So I'm Stephen. I'm located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I teach university students almost exclusively. So that's my main crowd, our music majors at Carnegie Mellon. And then I get a chance to do all kinds of continuing ed, adult education opportunities throughout the year here and there. But my main group are my music majors at CMU, all performers and composers. Maria, would you say hi?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Mandico. I'm in Newport, Rhode Island right now. I am in the Navy band. So I'm not currently teaching, but I am on the very end of my Dalcroze certificate process. So I am here to gather inspiration and share some info. I'm a flute player and happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Teo, want to say hi?
Teo. I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I study at Carnegie Mellon with Stephen Neely, and I plan to teach teenagers.
Thanks, Teo.
And Vic.
Hello, everybody. I'm Vic Wheeler. I'm tuning in from Austin, Texas today, and that's where I live, the vicinity of Austin. And I teach primarily online to adult amateur flutists and flute teachers. I run a community called Flutarians, and we are a supportive community of flutists who are improving our improvising.
Wonderful, which really ends up being some of the point of it. I just got a note that my son is going to join us, which is actually great. He's perfect for this conversation. And I'm just going to introduce him in case it takes him an extra second. Liam is a graduating, a last week senior in his undergrad in electronic music is his degree, but he does a lot of, well, here he comes, I bet. Is he going to pop up? Here he is. Hey, here he is. So Liam actually, I was just introducing you, Liam, knowing that you were popping in. Liam, in addition to his electronic music things, teaches piano, teaches group piano, and a lot of one-on-one piano. And improvisation with his piano students is a hot topic in his rooms, and he's constantly inventing new games to include improvisation with young piano students. And so he'll be great as someone to sort of chime in. And Liam, if there's an opportunity, you might share a couple of your most recent little successes with those piano lessons. So welcome. Let me just double check our agenda here. I had it in front of me a second ago. Here it is. I want to remind everybody to um, uh, welcome to the VDM. If you haven't made it to virtualdalcroze.org, we encourage everybody to go to the website. You can find our archives there. You can find our calendar there. You can subscribe to the calendar, which is a way to figure out what are we doing, when are we doing it, and have it automatically adjust to your time zone, which is a really big benefit, having so many of our colleagues in different time zones all around the world. So we strongly suggest you subscribe to the calendar and then have it just adjust for your time zone. And then if you're not already on our mailing list, I'd like to invite you to do that as well. We are very conservative about the emails we send out. We certainly don't spam, but we do send out reminders that hey, the next meetup's coming up or the next master class. And just our last announcement is that the last event of this season is a Dalcroze Essentials short course. So under Dalcroze Essentials, what we're talking about are sort of introductory experiences in Dalcroze pedagogy under whatever the heading is that's being taught. This one is being taught by Anne-Claire Ray-Ballet, who is a very famous teacher in Switzerland who specializes in working with older adults. And I've been in her older adult classes a couple times and watched her work with senior crowds, and she is really just kind of breathtakingly brilliant at what she does and so full of joy and energy. If working with older adults is anywhere near your practice, we encourage everybody to join us in that short course. It begins April 28th, so 1 week from today. Today, we've got two official presenters. We've got Maria and Vic, and we're just going to go like this. We're going to let Maria go. You got like whatever you want, but 7 minutes, give or take, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and then Vic. Maria is doing the air column in motion, Dalcroze principles for flutists. So again, we're today thinking about instrumentalists and Dalcroze principles. So some implication of one-on-one work maybe, or however you do it. And then Vic is doing Flute Improv Games, and he'll tell us about that. And then if there ends up being a little extra time, we'll ask Liam to tell us a little bit about some of his piano improv games, which I think will be nice rounding it out. Maria, the floor is yours. And don't be distracted. I'm going to close my window just so I can get into better lighting. You're on.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi, everyone. Okay. The air column in motion, Dalcroze principles for flutists. This is my topic, more or less, for my larger paper in my Dalcroze portfolio. And I need motivation to get it started. That's why I'm here in front of all of you. We, as flutists, especially Lorna McGee, she's a wonderful flutist, principal of the Boston Symphony. She said, we are artists of the breath. And I think all wind instrumentalists, our flute is so closely tied to the way singers interact with their air. It's so internal. And something I want to start out with saying is Dalcroze work brought me back to the flute. And every time I have finished a Dalcroze class, I have been craving to touch my flute in a whole different way. And I think it's because we know that Dalcroze invites spirit of play, discovery-based learning. The flute, because it's on the side of our body to start, right? Hello. There's so much that's in our head. How the air is produced is so nuanced, and how we get the quality and the color of our sound. It's just all internal. And Dalcroze really invites the work that I've done and that I really want to pass on to people, especially flutists. It takes us out because I think our bodies oftentimes know what to do to be free, to be aligned, and we just have to nudge it with an idea first. So an example that really spoke to me when I did the Summer Institute in Boston, it's basically physicalizing scale. So Dalcroze, and some of the work we do with solfege, especially do-to-do scales, which was new for me. Veronica had to tell me what it was because I completely had forgotten from 10 years ago. You can lay hoops on the ground and have flutists actually see, okay, like C to C, we can put all the different hoops out and then make the ones that are half steps closer together. Okay, but then what if we're doing the key of F? Okay, things are going to switch around. The half step changes position, and what was a half step becomes a whole step between the B flat and the C instead of the B and the C. And so I want flutists to have, especially like young learners and anybody who is feeling stuck or that it's just too isolatory in a practice room, like there's ways to invite this warmth and this discovery-based learning into either a group lesson or a private lesson. So I'm really, really passionate about like whether you have a piano background or not, you can externalize, you can physicalize, you can see how harmonies are put together, how just even teaching a chromatic scale in a Dalcrozian sense, so much more fun than trying to like talk someone through, because in traditional, a lot of the education that I was exposed to, there's like, you watch a teacher, then you do it, and then it's just, it was so step by step, and the whole experience before analysis can be a game changer. And I'm not teaching full time right now, but the one private student I have, uh, she was able to recognize chords. She was able to play around with scales. We were able to improvise right away, all because like we put hoops on the floor, or we were able to like use a scarf and like just see the line, of a phrase of music. And all of this, it wasn't presented to me when I was learning flute, but I had a background in piano. I saw the scale, I understood the black and white notes, and I had a Suzuki background, and Suzuki and Dalcroze pair so wonderfully. Um, but do-do-do scales, that's like something I want to write about in my paper is just we make this 3D, and it just gets me curious again, like for my own knowledge, but also like how can you have wonderful social interaction in the private flute lesson? Like, say you're teaching someone a chromatic scale, it's not the teacher knows everything and the student's like the submissive one. It can be really lovely. Like, you can create phrase conversations back and forth. You can be so simple. You could just do something with two notes and have a wonderful like interaction. And so I'm passionate about taking the flute as as a like the pedagogy around the flute out of the head and into the body. And Dalcroze, especially like using plastique for orchestral excerpts, like it just refreshes everything. And um so I have like a bunch of examples which I will save for my paper, but um using our air column, how to like maximize the air, but then inviting in like conducting, timing. Can we step and breathe? Can we step and sing? Like, I want to bring that to my flute students, and it can be at whatever age. We're talking very beginner all the way to like, college age and beyond. Um, the Dalcroze method, as we know, it's built on the belief that the body is the primary musical instrument. And so for a flutist, as I was saying, whose sound is generated by most intimate of physical movements, breathing, these principles bridge between playing an object and becoming the music. And so eurythmic, solfege, improv, these are all extremely relevant for the flute lesson. And Vic will talk about some really, really creative ways. I know that have helped me just feel more connected to this elusive and wonderful instrument. So I could go on and on. Talk about scarves, Afternoon of the Faun, for example, like a terrifying excerpt. I have seen um, my flute teacher in France, he played it twice through. This opening phrase that's like notoriously difficult because it's so intimate. He played it twice through without breathing because his air column is completely aligned. And he said, I'm not doing anything special. We're both anatomically the same, but I he had an intimate relationship with like time space energy. And I was like, I want what you have, and I'm going to figure it out in a Dalcroze. It's not magic. It's like, ooh, okay, he saw the ribbon of air. His spine was free. He had an Alexander background too. Um, but that kind of freedom, I believe we all have access to. And it's not like certain virtuosos are blessed and then everybody else just struggles. No, we all have like extreme creative capacity for beauty. And I think my experience with Dalcroze has just set my soul on fire. Like, I want to take these principles and the different education strategies and bring them to my primary instrument. So I'll leave it there for now. Thank you for listening to my passionate ramble. And I will report back when I finish my paper,
So good.
especially to Vic. Thank
I
you.
thank you so much. I can't wait to talk through some of those ideas with you. And that was actually in just that little bit of time. Maria mentioned actually a number of things that not every newcomer to the VDM would recognize as, oh, those are base principles that are built into the pedagogy. She knocked out at 3 or 4 of them. So when we get to conversation, I'll try to go back and mention a couple of those. Thank you so much, Maria. It's always a joy to see you
You're
and to
welcome.
hear from you. Vic, you're up. You got a couple minutes.
Great to hear from you, Maria. Maria and I have played several improv games together. She showed up. So I run the community called Flutarians. I also do private lessons, and just a little bit of background about how I came to be here. I was the star student from a tiny town in southeast Texas, and then I moved to Houston to go to the High School for Performing and Visual Arts. And when I graduated from there, I thought, oh, I'll play in an orchestra when I grow up. And I went to the University of North Texas, which is the biggest public music college in the country, or at least one of the top two. And at the same time in my life, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and died that same year. And I couldn't even make it into the concert band at my own college. That I was competing with all of the graduate students, and it just utterly crushed any interest I had in competing in the orchestral track. And I did finish my degree with a music degree, but I was basically so burnt out that I wasn't playing. And when I did start playing again, it wasn't because I had some competition coming up or some audition or some concert. It was because I'd be listening to music and my dad's favorite songs would come on, and I would want to improvise with my voice, and I'd think, oh, I'm such a better flutist than I am a singer, and I'd get out my flute and I'd start improvising. And in retrospect, now I realize that I was becoming a better flutist, honing my craft, honing my expressiveness during that time. But I had a conservatory style upbringing, so I was prepared with the technical skills of playing the flute. And eventually, after I kind of came out of all that depression and started playing made some friends here in Austin, started playing in a kirtan band and a folk rock band and that type of stuff, people started asking me, where do I teach? And the first couple of times people asked me that, I said, oh no, I don't teach. So after a few times I realized something needed to change. And that's when I created the Flutarians community. And it took me a while to realize that what I had, that at least a significant minority of other flute players want, is confidence when I improvise. So at first I was just kind of dabbling with some lecture type of things, and then I had been listening to Nate Shaw on the Seven Figure Music Schools podcast, and he runs Brooklyn Music School, and part of their program is big music games. I'll show you a peek into my world as well as a peek into that world. So this is the Flutarians journey at Mad Libs. This is one of the first things I request that my members do to kind of build their identity as an improviser. But big music games, they've got several basically video games that they play with their kids every time. And I was going to these teacher trainings, and I was thinking, gosh, what they're doing with kids in elementary school and middle school and high school, adults would like this too. And and then also I read an email from Angela Gargano. I call her my pull-up crush because she coaches people on how to get their first pull-up. And I was just following her email list, and she said that when she goes to improv games for acting or for comedy, that it just takes her out of being into the do all the time and puts her in a state of flow. And I thought, that's what my people need. Because one of the things that I discovered through, I guess you could call it my market research, just chatting with other flute players with similar backgrounds to me, is that there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxiousness, nervousness, fear of the inner bully, fear of people who've perhaps insulted our musical abilities in the past. And I realized that if I really want to help the people who are ready, I've got to make it fun. And so that's when I really started taking these ideas from big music games and improv acting and improv comedy and inventing games like Higher or Lower or the Chromatic Guess It game. So if y'all want to join my Flutarian school, please do. You don't even have to join, though, to access the classroom. And in the classroom, if you go down to the virtual improv games with that Improvometer, I've got 7 games listed here that you can take and remix with your people, your students, your friends, your music teachers. Any way up or any way down is just like going up or down the stairs, but skipping 2 and sliding down 3 and the only goal with that one is to touch all the notes in the scale at least once. And I think if I can convince Maria or where let's see, is Julie still with us? We'll do a little bit of the chromatic guess it game, which is an advanced version of higher or lower. Higher or lower, you can define which notes you're going to play. You can limit it to maybe just 3 notes to the very beginners, or 5 notes for medium. But since most of the flutists who come to my games are already at least intermediate players, we do the chromatic guess it game. Let's do a little demo of that one. Here's another little view of these others, but I don't think we need to see them to play them. Maria, are you ready to play flute?
I can be in like 2 minutes. Ooh, I can go grab
1 minute. Julie might be as well. So
Let's see if
go
Julie,
ahead and
yeah,
get your flutes and turn on your original sound for musicians if it's not turned on already. The way the chromatic guess it game works is player 1 plays any random note on the flute as a long tone, and then player 2 is going to try to guess that note through the chromatic scale. So this game works best if you hear that note and guess generally where it is, and then choose a note that's definitely lower or definitely higher than that, maybe an octave or more away. And this is one of those games where I think this idea of play it so slowly you can't possibly play it wrong works in your favor, because if you're moving slowly through the chromatic scale and you're listening each time you change notes to, is it different or is it the same? Is it higher or is it lower? Then when you're on the unison, it should be fairly obvious that you're on the same note, except perhaps in the rare occasion where you're so out of tune that it doesn't sound like the same note. Welcome back, Maria.
Thank you.
Did you turn on
I
your
gotta
original
find-
sound? Usually it's at the top right, just to the left of the minimize button.
Let's see. I'm on the web version. Sorry, guys.
Oh, I don't know about the web version, but
I
if
don't know
someone
about the
else
web
has
version.
an instrument handy.
The other place it might work, you might find it is in the advanced settings
In
or
the
under your
settings.
microphone. So there's a little like arrow beside the microphone often,
Yep.
and if you pull that up, you might see original sound for musicians there. We've learned
See
so
here.
much the last 5 years. It's crazy.
I'm now running my group calls on School's video call platform. About a month ago, they released high fidelity audio, which is their answer to the original sound for musicians in Zoom.
Good.
Yeah, it's working out so far.
Well, I don't see the original sound for musicians like I usually
Okay,
do, but
you play a long tone and I'll see if I can discover it. Sure, I can hear it.
okay, we'll start there.
Okay, choose any random note, play it as a long tone, and I'm going to see if I can discover it.
Okay.
It's A natural, right?
We found it.
All right, so let's switch roles and I'll play a random note and you can try to discover it.
See that? C sharp. C sharp.
C sharp, that's right. Nice slow down as you arrive. I think of that one as like a train arriving into a station as it bleeds off momentum. This great game is great for preparing improvisers for the inevitability of playing a note that's outside of the key signature and recovering from it. It helps train our fingers to immediately move up or down the scale to a note that sounds consonant as opposed to a note that sounds dissonant. We can also use it to basically transcribe or transpose a melody that where maybe a singer or another instrumentalist is playing. Here's another quick game that sometimes we combine it with this animal adjectives idea. Animal adjectives, this one is a fun one to share, actually, just the image of it. So I've got some spinners here that y'all can use, and the first spinner is an animal, or an adjective, and the second spinner is an animal. So, we've got devoted and a devoted turtle. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll spin it twice and get two contrasting animal adjective pairs, and then play something like Mary Had a Little Lamb, or a free improvisation, or maybe with a little backing track. And then the audience, or in the case of the online community members try and guess, was it the devoted turtle or the lazy snake or something like that. So sometimes I use a similar idea in playing. I call it Happy Mary or Sad Mary, and it's Mary Had a Little Lamb, but adding the adjective on top, and then you. I like to use this as a teaching tool for the difference between hearing a major third and hearing a minor third. So Mary Had a Little Lamb normally starts on the major third. Ooh, you can't hear my piano sound yet. I gotta unplug it. Now, if we started on the minor third, suddenly Mary sounds pretty sad, huh? So, how about Maria? Would you secretly choose if you're going to play Happy Mary or Sad Mary, and then play it, and we'll guess how is Mary?
All right. I had to.
Oh, beautiful. How's it sounding out there? How does Mary sound?
So sad.
So the saddest. Yeah.
Yeah. How about y'all give me two contrasting adjectives, and I'll guess between them, and or I'll choose one and y'all can guess. What's two other ways that Mary could be? Maybe we can get a little alliteration in here.
Excited.
Excited Mary versus
Slippery.
ooh, slippery Mary. Okay.
What do you think, Liam?
Sound pretty slippery to me.
Yeah, slippery. Yeah, sometimes we play a game that I call the slip sliding melody game, where the goal is to connect all of the notes of the melody with the chromatic scale in between, just like I did. So that could be a kind of a timing issue, plus a technical issue, just getting our fingers moving fast enough. Well, I feel like that was a good brief introduction. I'm happy to play more games with y'all if you want to. There's another one we play that's called Anywhere But There, where we have a wheel just like in the animal adjectives, where it chooses, are you going to play, it removes one note from the equation. So there's the 3-note version where then you have 2 notes left over and you're going to improvise with those 2. There's the 4-note version where it takes one out and you've got 3 notes to improvise with. And I like playing these games that kind of simplify what we're going to do as far as which notes we're going to play, so we can focus on the other elements of music like rhythm, dynamics, intonation, space or spaciousness, articulation, because there tends to be this compulsion among improving improvisers to play lots of notes, but music is not just about which notes we play.
So good. Vic, thank you so much. There's so many ideas here, and there's so many ways we could riff on all of this. Since I got Liam to show up, I'm going to ask Liam, can you talk to us for 3 minutes about who have you been teaching, and particularly your improv work with the youngins?
Yep. So I teach for the Carnegie Mellon Preparatory School, and so I teach ages 5 to 7-ish. And my main job there is to just be the traditional piano teacher, where I teach them all the basics of music. But then aside from that, I have a couple of students, some inside the program, some outside the program, that I specifically teach improv to, because that's my favorite thing to do. I'm a much better improviser than I am sight reader. And a lot of the things that, like, my whole goal with improv is purely just to get them to try and feel the feels, to be creative, to see music as something that isn't just like playing the right notes at the right time. And so I achieve that by a bunch of really weird, silly games and doing similar things of like how I said slippery, and no one really knows what that means. But like an idea shows up in someone's head and then it can work. And so it's always kind of my goal to get people out of their comfort zone and think about music in more fun, less restricting ways. Um, and I'm always trying to figure out new ways to do it. And the whole like hula hoop idea is awesome. And the one thing that I tend to struggle with a tiny bit is getting my students to it's I don't know if it's like I'm struggling to do it or if I'm like purposely trying to avoid it, is stick with keys. And so like the hula hoops is great for getting them to think in that mindset, which can lead to a lot of other things and probably better musical understanding. But in a lot of my exercises, I tend to break the keys. And so like they aren't like restricted to a key, but maybe I'll restrict them to like five notes, but they have to pick the five notes. And a whole lot of like learning by ear. Um, but yes, I think I might try and do your hula hoop idea in some way, because I really like that. But a lot of my stuff is just like, how can I make music silly, and how can they find new ways to enjoy it?
That's very good. Just for anybody who's new to the Dalcroze community and has maybe stumbled into this video, I just want to point out a couple things that have just come up that are actually really very standard ways of talking about or working under a Dalcroze pedagogy. This Maria spent a good bit of time trying to describe how we get it in the body, or we notice that our music's first. So we say the body's the first instrument, and we're trying to notice that, and we actually have a bit of a bias against instruments is not at all the right word, but we notice that it's possible to wiggle my fingers on some piece of wood or metal outside of my body and make it make noise and yet actually feel nothing inside me. We just want to point out that's possible. That is not an uncommon scenario. I can saw away on a cello and yet not actually feel music. I can just make it make noise. I can even make it make noise beautifully and perfectly in tune and absolutely accurately and still not actually feel the motion of the music. And so one of the sort of first allegiances of any Dalcroze training is we almost always set our instrument aside, and we try to first experience music just with us. And so that's why there's so much walking and clapping and wiggling and moving around, is because we want to first notice music in our first instrument, so that then when we pick up the second instrument, or we choose to sing like a singer and we're doing that performative version of making music, it's hoping to come from something. I want to know my music in me first, so that, and then I pick up my instrument and I try to learn technique on my instrument. And even though y'all have been talking about, we've been sort of juxtaposing improvisation maybe versus technique, but actually improvisation, of course, is a technique of its own. It's a way of being more expressive on our instrument. And so the idea would be that if I know music in me first, then I need technique in order to be able to share it with others. So I tell my students there is no reason to own a violin except that you have music in you that you would like to share with others. If you have nothing to share, there's no reason to. Why are you killing yourself? Just lay on your bed and think music, and you can know it that way. But if you want to share it with someone else, well, now we have some reason to learn something about embouchure and about breath and about posture and about the way to hold a bow and all of that, and our scales and our circle of fifths and all of that, and our freedom to noodle as an improviser. is another technique that allows me to be more expressive and share more of what I have in me. So I just wanted to point that one out. The out of the head and into the body was wording that Maria used, which is just more versions, of saying that. We do have a steadfast rule that almost all Dalcrozians would agree on. We don't have very many rules at all, but one of the biggest rules that everybody would agree on is this notion of, and she said it, experience before analysis. So before we will give anybody vocabulary words, before we draw anybody's attention to a printed page, to notes and the names of notes and the voicings of chords and all of that, before we would do any of that with anybody, we first want them to be in an experience of the thing that maybe we will eventually analyze. And we actually have no mandate to ever name a pitch or name a chord or name a progression or name an articulation or name a genre. There's no requirement under the Dalcroze heading. Depending on who our students are, some of them really need that information and others of them really don't need that information. What we care about is that they first understand the motion of their music, and then, which is experience. And then when it's appropriate, which sometimes is right away with 5-year-olds, and other times is like a year from now or 2 or never with other kinds of students. Like I don't ever need to teach some students the deepest elements of some musical theory concept if that isn't really where they're headed. And then she mentioned time, space, energy, which is this juxtaposition that says if you adjust any one, you have to adjust at least one of the other. And Vic mentioned it when he mentioned his slip-sliding melody. So and that's, by the way, your slip-sliding melody is a common Dalcrozian solfege game, which isn't ours. It's yours and it's ours and it's everybody else who has thought about ways to improvise around notes, where we have a pitch and we know what the next pitch is, and then we think how many partials are in between, and how can I acknowledge them? And then if I kept the beat the same, could I squeeze them all in? And as soon as I keep the beat the same, that's time, then my space and my energy are going to adjust, in order to do that. Or I can let the time adjust. I can make it take longer time to play all of those notes in between. And so I have playing with the space and the energy is another one. So even just in this little, sharing of what is improvisation and how are the games that we're playing, we're bumping into all sorts of sort of top things. I don't know. We got 19 minutes here. How do we want to go next? Vic, you want to tell us what's your next low-hanging fruit improv game there, or does anybody have a question or a comment of things that you're seeing? Hi, Angela. It's nice to see you.
I was thinking maybe we could play a little bit of animal adjectives, and I can demo a little bit of this. It's like analysis. How are you putting it? Like feeling it before experience before analysis, because I feel like my role as the lead Flutarian instructor is part counselor and part music teacher, sure. Because I'm always asking people to check in with their inner critic and their inner teacher, because I try to help people strengthen that self-teaching muscle so that one day they won't need me to point out where they could improve. I heard a dragon is one of Teo's favorite animals. What's a contrasting animal to the dragon?
Contrasting to a dragon. How about a slug?
Ooh, a slug. Slimy slug versus a daring dragon, maybe. Maria, do you feel like giving a go at one of those, and we can show off the process a little bit?
Are we still doing Mary?
I was going to say, how about you open this one up to a whole major scale? Let's make it C major to keep it simple.
Okay.
Slimy slug or daring dragon? Hey, what do y'all think? Which creature was it? Yeah, I think it's the dragon. I can see some of your mouths moving. Can't quite hear it though. So Maria, tell us, what did you do with your technique to make it possible for us to guess that it was a dragon?
Well, since I'm in my fantasy era, reading all the dragon books, just picturing like So short. They're just the sheer mass of like what these mythical creatures are. They're very short. So I just started with like a very firm, confident, you know,
Fast note,
like a
kind of.
launch off, yeah, from like a low C to a middle C, and then just like, oh, I know exactly where I'm going. Maybe a little flourish because they are extra. They breathe
Hmm.
fire, and came on back down. The slug would be a completely different,
More like
texture and
what was it?
energy.
Slippery Mary.
Right.
Very slippery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What thoughts did you observe yourself having? Any?
Um, no, it's just like this is I felt safe to explore, and that's what I love. Like, we can do this anywhere, virtually or in person. Like, there's no wrong way, right? Especially if you have a scale. So it's a mix of like technique plus complete spur of the moment improv, and I need more of that in life. And this is the kind of thing I want to introduce early on to learners, um, where it's like a choose your own adventure, but there's still a boundary of like, okay, you have the scale, but you can make it whatever you want, and you have a strong image, color, intention in mind from the get
Mm.
go.
It's very nice. One of the ways that we play similar games with the little kids away from their instrument is so. I love the theme that's being mentioned here a bunch of ways is how is it that we would feel free enough to actually be creative, so that inner critic business. I'm a bit of a therapist as well as an instructor, so we're thinking. I think we're all thinking about that kind of thing because we're supposed to be artists. And so when I'm working with my university students, there is a day, there's some point I'm sure we always bump into where we say, well, actually, if the only thing you ever do is play the notes that somebody tells you to play, how are you an artist? Like, where's the artistry in that? And the answer should be, oh, no, the way I play, I have agency in. And so I'm aware of the choices I'm making as I'm going. But not every 18-year-old has thought that deep into it. And actually, a whole lot of them have been trained to not express any agency. They've been told to do it exactly this one way, the way my mentor told me to do it, so that I do it right, and now I can get on with my day. So we're spending a lot of time in my class with that. When we're working with the little kids, or with the adults, there's lots of ways. But I love the animals. There's classic 100-year-old Dalcroze games that are who's got an animal, and then some crazy 4-year-old flops around on the floor and they decide that they're a tiger. And so because they're young and pretending to be animals is make believe is fun. We got that part solved. So they're not all fearless, but a lot of 4-year-olds really can be if we tempt them to be a tiger. And so they make tiger motions and they crawl around. Then the musical buy-in is often added at the beginning by the teacher. So I'll then go to the piano and I'll improvise tiger music for them, which is a way of validating their improvisation. They made the scary part, and I'm showing them how what they're doing isn't scary. In fact, it's really fun. And not only is it just tigers, it's musical tiger. And so they all of a sudden get the music in their body that I'm playing, but inspired by them. And then so they do it, they do the motion, I make the music, we do the music and motion together, then everybody in the classroom, we're all musical tigers for a moment, and then it's not the only way, but a very common next pivot is who's got another animal. And then someone else does something else, and they're a chimpanzee, and then we all do, and then someone's a slug, and then someone's a dragon, and then and each time we're trying to. And then as we would move up a step, and I know Liam has done some of this with his kids, is who's got a thing, someone's a tiger, who would go to the piano and be the tiger, or who would get out their flute and can you make the tiger music? So as a sort of a next step in, we can embody the thing, and then play for the thing, and then reap the reward of shared experience where there's no one who's wrong if you're participating at all. It's working. So those inhibition breaking ideas, that attention is critical. If we are trying to raise up creatives, truly the improvisation to me seems like an obvious step for every studio if we want creatives, if we want to find artists.
Thanks, Stephen. Hearing both of y'all's responses, the phrase that's flashing in my brain right now is practicing choosing.
Yeah.
And that's something those of you who are teaching younger people can prepare the next generation for, so that when people come to me when they're in college or in their 50s or 60s, it's not like it's the first time in their musical lives where they're practicing choosing. I
Yeah,
guess you're right. We should practice choosing and how we play the music, but not everyone has teachers that kind of groom them in that direction.
yeah. We in my classroom we say artistry. Now, I'm working with young adults who are professionally pointed. They're in a professional training, but we say artistry begins with choices. And then we're spending hours and hours and hours trying to catch them making choices, in which case, yay. And we're trying to catch them in mindless, following the leader kind of spaces where they were actually, I can point out, I'm not sure you're making any choices. And we need to, as pre-professionals, we're trying to be aware of that. I'm trying to be aware of my agency in my performance, how, what am I offering, and what sort of burden, as again, as a pre-professional, what burden of artistry am I carrying with me, as opposed to the burden of just hit all the right notes and then go home. And so those are deep ideas. But what's so great is that we can build that training right from the youngest of young. And if we can just keep them in that thing. And then it's also something, sometimes it's no harder than just telling an adult, actually, this is a goal. This is like a legitimate goal of your playing. It doesn't occur to all adults that they're supposed to do something more than only hit the right notes with good tone and tight intonation. That isn't obvious to everybody. What do we think?
What questions does this stimulate for those of you listening?
Liam, I think you were just telling me a day or two, three ago about you had two students on the same day, and one was an easy improviser, and one was absolutely
Yeah.
refusing.
So I have some students outside of CMU, where originally they were all part of CMU, and then they leave the program, but they want to keep me as a teacher. And so I originally taught all of them classical piano, and that was my job. I would teach them how to do all the basics of music reading and how to be the best concert pianist they can be at 5 years old. And some of that system works really well with some of the students, and some of the students it doesn't work well with them at all. And so I think my best improviser right now, he was the one, probably one of the ones who were struggling the most in the classical background. And so getting further away from that background was easier for him. And he was way more open to try something different that wasn't something that he was struggling as much at. But then the opposite, I have another student who I still do teach like classical-esque music to, but I'm always trying to get some type of improv exercise in, like if there's like 5 or 10 minutes at the end of our lesson. Because I really am just trying to get them to feel the feels. I want them to understand that music can be like this, but uh, definitely has more of a fear of like, I don't know the right notes. And then there's like a slight barrier there that it's really hard to overcome. And she's like, no, I don't know the right answer. And so I can't do it. But I'm getting closer, I think.
So what were
Um,
the games that you're trying to do with her to know what to write notes?
so the most recent one was I always start with Black Key Improv just because it's the easiest. Because there's like it's the most ear pleasing to someone who's never done it before. And it's the step into the door. But even for her, it was really hard to get just that because there's still like there's notes to press, and I have to make like musical choices, and that's hard. And so uh, she has a dog, and so there was a tennis ball lying around, and so we picked up the tennis ball, and I said, okay, let's play a song with the tennis ball. Now there's no fingers at all. It's just this ball that we roll along the keys. Can we make a thing like that? And I had slight more success with that one. Once she realized what was happening, she totally like switched off because she was like, no, I'm not doing that. You're trying to get me to improvise. Um, but I'm just the whole goal is just trying to get her to recognize that she can do it. Um, but it's
When
still a little bit hard.
when you're
Uh,
doing Black Key Improv, are you playing with her?
Most of the time. For all of those examples, I am because I'm just trying to give context to what they're playing. I'm not playing anything like substantial. I'm just playing like four different chords, and then I'll change the amount I'm playing the chords. Like if I'm playing them just as blocked held chords that I hold for 4 beats, and I leave a lot more space, or if I'm trying to fill things in to try and do like some call and response or anything like that. I always start with me playing a lot more, and then I will slowly fade out what I'm playing to try and just like holding these notes. And sometimes I'll just go to playing one note. I'll just play the root of every chord um, until it's mostly like they're only focusing on what they're doing and they're not focusing on what I'm doing at all. Like I'm only there to help build them up.
Very
Uh,
nice. Vic, I really liked your chromatic game, and I was actually surprised at how well it worked on Zoom. I wasn't expecting to be able to hear both pitches on Zoom. There was some point in the Zoom history where we couldn't do that, and so I'm gonna have to go back and experiment more with multiple people singing or multiple people, making sounds at the same time. That actually was really fun to hear. Are there is accompanying or more than one person playing, or the teacher like Vic playing while his students are experimenting? Is there very much ensemble work in your games, or are they more likely on and off, or one person at a time?
We do a lot of duets because part of my approach is that, well, unlike most online master classes where you show up and maybe play your instrument for 5 minutes if you're lucky, I want to know that people are making progress because they're taking action, their instrument is in their hands. So I set up several games where we can play duets. One of my favorite ones, I call it the improv scaffolding number 1 and 2. I call them scaffoldings because, like, scaffolding is what you have next to a building that's being built, and this is a scaffolding like an incomplete composition that's not built yet. And the supportive player, this one you can play with any instrument that's a tonal instrument. Supportive player plays 3 notes. If we do the slowest version of the day, a 1 and a 5 and a 1. And the melodic player, if we're going to stick to the simplest version of it, they improvise with the arpeggios on top of that. And the main thing they're listening for is the change in the bass player, the chord change. So that works well enough. When we start adding in rhythm to it, it gets a little bit more challenging because there is a delay. But I still find that we're able to learn from those situations because there might be a time when you're improvising and you are the rhythm master. You are the drummer, so to speak, and everyone else is following you. So that gives us a chance to practice that skill. It was interesting to me listening to Liam describe his 2 students, and I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, I'm surprised that even at 5, there's already this wall built against what if I do the wrong thing? The inner critic is already highly active. I
Yeah,
thought maybe it would come up later for more people, but I
yep,
suppose it's different for everybody.
it's different for everybody.
I've never had a student that put up this many walls before. Normally, it's the easiest thing in the world to get them to just press a few buttons. It's not hard. Um,
Piano is easy to play compared to the
yeah,
flute.
it's just buttons. That's all it is. Um, and so yeah, I've never had so many walls. Just like it's normally I say, okay, press these buttons, and then they go, okay, I have all these buttons to press. I'm gonna press all of them. Um, but yeah, something got like some fear got put in maybe by parents or past teachers. So I don't know.
And we certainly see it in our older students. But I mean, there could be all kinds of reasons that a child or an adult isn't feeling free to move in, and then that's our role. Like that's our job as instructors of art to to help them figure out how to access that space. And I don't know. I think it's pretty profound. I think it's pretty rich work that we're doing. I think in that kind of situation, whether we're helping a 6-year-old feel free enough to just to try some things, or I've got a 20-year-old who I'm also showing, no, actually, you're going to be fine. You can do this. I'll make fun of myself. I'll be silly. I'll be big. I'll roll around. Let me show you the simplest way that I can pull you in. I feel like we're really doing something that's a big deal. It's not just how to help you have more access on your instrument. It's how to help you have access on your instrument. like on the you, the humanity of you. It is, and if your flute and your piano and your cello can be a part of that, well, I think that's really what they were designed for. But we're really stretching people, their their self is what we're stretching. If, as Vic is leading people through improv games, and Maria's trying to get her students to feel more deeply, and Liam's trying to get the 7-year-old out of her head and just to feel more free. And all of those cases, we're really working with the humans that are out there, rather than treating them like little robots. And I think it's really wonderful and beautiful. We are about at time. Anybody have any closing words? Anybody got anything they want to chime in?
It's called playing for a reason. It's supposed to be fun.
There you go. That's the right final word. We like that a lot. Vic, you're the best. I'm so happy you came and you presented. Thank you so much. I hope we'll see you back. And congrats with Flutarian. And I'm sure that will continue to be successful. Maria, you're in the club, dear, and so we will host you in Pittsburgh at some point, and we will definitely bump into you at things coming up. If anybody's catching this, we're good friends with everybody at the Dalcroze Society of America, and their national conference is coming up in June on Long Island. So if anybody watching this, if it's pre-June of 26, consider finding us all there. There will be a whole bunch of us, and a bunch of us will teach a little bit, and we'll all get to hang out, and it'll be really nice. So consider that. Consider coming to Carnegie Mellon for 3 weeks, 1 to 2 to 3 weeks of the summer, and getting some big training in, and definitely come back to the virtual Dalcroze meetup. We've got one more short course with Anne Claire, and this season, and then starting in the fall, all new master classes, all new short courses, and a whole new series of meetups, including meetup number 100, which we haven't quite figured out what we're doing, but we're going to do something. And so that'll be fun. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks
Have a
so
great
much.
night. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Vic. Thanks, Teo. Thanks, Liam.